It's that time, Mets fans. It is that time. We are just one sleep away from New York Metropolitan regular season baseball upon us, and that is exactly what we're getting into in our latest Big Mets update segment, that being March 26, 2025, because David Stearns just spoke to the media and broke down all the latest roster moves for the Mets, and we officially have word as to what this bullpen is going to be. We have a great grasp as to pretty much how everything's going to be, except for one player still, and Mr. Luis Angel Acuña, as he is stuck in complete limbo. We're going to share our initial reactions to this all, as well as further reacting to the news that Paul Blackburn is now down with injury yet again. To what degree is what we're going to hear from David Stearns. We're also going to hear some key remarks from Carlos Mendoza on the Francisco Alvarez front, and everything in between, folks. Lock in and get ready. Mets baseball is right around the corner, and we will have post-game coverage for you guys live directly after tomorrow's hopefully Game 1 victory against Houston in Houston. But without further ado, everybody, let's get right into this one. But I will just say I have to do a quick shameless plug on just a couple of things, because we have some very exciting things happening on the platform right here, right now, that I have to start with. And guys, let's get into the big one that you're going to see right here, right now, which is the following. Wardy's expanding. Yes, he is, folks. You guys like Wardy? You like my takes beyond just some Mets? Well, you're in luck, because WardyMLB, presented by Stark Raving Sports, is officially upon us. Our first video will be dropping at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm so excited to have you guys check out. Please make sure to hop over there, subscribe, like. Let us know all your thoughts in the comments down below on the type of MLB-related content you want to see over there. Thank you so much in advance. I am so pumped up for this. This has been long overdue. A lot of you guys have asked for this. We've been doing a great job in the Bleacher Report app, as I have a new live show right after I'm recording this one, 5 p.m. Eastern in the BR app, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every day throughout the week. But I told myself, if I'm going to be doing MLB-wide coverage for BR, I might as well be doing MLB-wide coverage here on YouTube as well, in a very different way. So check out the content, 6 p.m. drop later. Hope to see you guys there. Also, guys, tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, I'll be live for our first official and only Mets season preview. It's going to be a season preview and Q&A session to just my members on the platform. If you guys want to get involved and become a member, I have the link for that down below in the description of this video right here, right now. And if you guys didn't check out yesterday, I did a live show there on the latest Rico Bronya with, Evan Roberts and Pete Hoffman. Had an absolute blast of a conversation. You guys can see there, hour-long breakdown on a season preview and prediction show on the WFAN official YouTube channel. So check out all that separate content whenever you guys get a chance. And thank you so much for doing exactly that. Now let's get into this one, everybody, and let's chop it up on what David Stearns had to say on this official Mets roster heading into 2025, beginning this series here in Houston.
Paul Blackburn is going to begin the season on the 15-day IL with right knee inflammation. Paul got through his most recent outing in good shape, no problems. Reported the next day with a little bit of knee soreness. It persisted the following day. We don't think this is serious. He got an injection to calm it down, but we do think this is inflammation. He'll have 7 to 10 days, no throw, and then we'll get back going pretty quickly. We'd expect him to have him back at some point in the month of April.
Oh my goodness gracious. For all the Paul Blackburn haters, you're rejoicing right now. Why? Because this is yet another example as to why Paul Blackburn has not been reliable for the Mets since they've acquired him. And this is not a slight on him at all. If anything, I just feel bad for the guy. His buddy can't catch a break. Let's not forget, Blackburn was a formidable back-end option for the Mets that they acquired from the A's of the trade deadline last year, a ground ball merchant, and how he's going to have a success naturally with a heavy sinker usage. Well, Blackburn, after going down to end his year prematurely last year with a spinal fluid leak, as bizarre as that is to say and sound, because it is, he ramps up this spring training, loses that rotation battle to both Tyler McGill and Griffin Canning, and now we come to find out that he's going to be starting the year on the injured list. This is very Jordan Montgomery-esque in the sense that 48 hours ago, we heard from the Arizona Diamondbacks organization that they were sending Monty to the bullpen, which wasn't shocking to hear, as they were doing everything in their power to try to part ways with him. But then a day after that, we find out reports that he is now going to be out for the year with Tommy John surgery, something that they probably knew about for a number of days, but they purposely had it posted the way that they did in the media eye, which I found fascinating. The same way that I'm sure the Mets knew for a little bit here on the Paul Blackburn front before making it official. Obviously, this isn't ideal. Blackburn is a workhorse, and I think would work best as a Trevor Williams type in this bullpen, knowing that he was on the outside looking in to begin the year, and knowing that the Mets have so much uncertainty in the rotation as to what you're getting, especially when we look at guys and Tyler McGill and Griffin Canning, how much length are we really going to get out of them? Clay Holmes, same applies. There's a lot of great questions as we head into the early goings of the season with this rotation, and to not have Blackburn as a guy that at least could piggyback, maybe even back-to-back days, giving you just a couple innings there to keep things afloat in said matchups, whether it's against the Astros, against Miami, against Toronto at their homestand, whatever it's going to be. So Blackburn is now going to have to ramp up a little bit, but when he does come back to this Mets team, don't be surprised if he's still slotted back in the Mets bullpen unless something completely goes awry in the rotation from now up until he's fully ramped back and back from injury. But Paul Blackburn, wishing him well, and I really do hope that things get better on his front, because I really do believe that he's the guy that has the makings of being a formidable option for the Mets. Maybe not as a starter, but as I just alluded to, a Trevor Williams type. He really gives off that profile of a guy that could come in and thrive in multi-inning relief while also giving you some starts in a crunch when you need to because of inevitable injuries or guys simply not performing up to caliber. For one reason or another, Paul Blackburn, we're going to see you sooner rather than later, but man, oh man, we just got to get you healthy, buddy. We really do. But before we move forward into today's video, folks, I gotta ask, have you had the same level of frustration that I've had? Because every single time that I'm either heading to Manhattan for the day to roam around and then do things work-wise, or for leisure, or when I'm deeper in Long Island and then taking the 7 Mets games, I'm always left dissatisfied when it comes to listening to music, because whatever earphones, headphones, earbuds that I'm rocking at the time, they either get ruined because, okay, the battery life is too short, or B, because the weather in New York fluctuates quite a bit and they've been rained on multiple times and have been ruined, or they just aren't the proper fit for my ear. Well, that has all come to an end thanks to my awesome friends here at Raycon with their awesome everyday earbuds. And there's a couple things in particular that I love about Raycon and their product, and not just because they're sponsored on the platform, but the reality that I'm using these things every day since I've gotten them. And this goes back to just a couple days ago at the time of recording this one. I rocked these bad boys heading into Manhattan, where I took the hike from Pennsylvania to Secaucus train station. From the train station, went over there to Penn Station, was roaming around Manhattan all day long with some friends up until the Knicks game later on that evening. And these were as comfortable and as perfect as ones could honestly hope for, in my humble opinion at least, and it starts with the seamless fit. There are various features that I love about the Raycon headphones, but right away it's how they fit in my ear. Their newfound technology has really separated themselves from the rest, in my opinion, in the sense that when I've rocked others, I'm not going to say names, but they know who they are, they just aren't the same comfort level whatsoever. The way that these, I honestly don't even realize I have them in half the time. I think that goes in hand with the fact that they fit more so the upper area of my ear here versus others are kind of more pointed downward, which is kind of bizarre to me. These, though, a perfect fit that you honestly wouldn't notice unless I completely head turn your way too. So it's not like they're completely bulging or sticking out. So that's one of the main things I love so much about this product. But the other thing that I love so much about them is the fact that they are water resistant. This is huge for someone like me that's rocking earbuds in various weather, especially when it's rainy and cold a lot of the times in New York, or even when I'm doing, say, yard work and things among other things, and then I'm having myself sweat bullets, and then bam, they're getting ruined that way. That's no longer the case here with these Raycons, and that's why I, again, appreciate them as much as they do. So guys, what does that mean for you if you want to get involved with these Raycons and everything that they have to offer? Not only do they have various qualities, including active noise cancellation, they have a 32-hour battery life, among many other things. They fit easily in your pocket like this. I love the design that I picked out too for the Raycon official pod covers that you see here. And all you guys need to do to get in on Raycon, especially to enjoy this as much as I do, is by simply heading over to buyraycon.com/WardyNYM to get 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds, brought to you by Raycon, everybody. Shout out to them once more. Can't thank them enough for the endless support. Apologies, everybody, for having that clip show up just for a quick second there. But as we now get into our next key segment, this has everything to do with the Mets bullpen configuration as we begin the season. And this is what David Stearns has to say.
Both Max Kranick and Wasker Brazoban have made the team. We informed those guys today. Hayden Senger will be on our team. We've also informed Hayden. Great story there. Very happy for Hayden. And the rest of the position player grouping, we're gonna go down to the wire here, and we'll not have an announcement until we release our opening day roster at noon tomorrow.
So at noon tomorrow is when the official roster will be dropping, so we'll all be ecstatic to see that. But there's really only one key decision that's left, and that's on the Luis Angel Acuña front that we'll get into shortly. But before we do, let's just spend a quick moment to share our further appreciation for what the Mets did here in both Max Kranek and Huascar Brosban now cracking the bullpen, which makes endless sense, not only because of Paul Blackburn going down, but really because of Paul Blackburn going down, as a matter of fact, because he was initially supposed to start the year in the pen. Now that he's down on the IL, that opens up the floodgates for both Kranek and Brosban, and yes, AJ Minter. AJ will be starting the year in the Mets bullpen as well. That was officially announced by the Mets and David Stearns today too, so very exciting stuff. Minter said it in his last spring outing, even after giving up a oppo bomb to Pablo Reyes. It didn't change the fact that he said, I think we checked off every single box that we need to this spring to get ramped up, and now he is ramped up. So AJ Minter's in the pen. Huascar Brosban, who posted just around a 1.6 or so ERA this spring, he looked good. Walk rate was fluctuating, but the guy's stuff is absolutely deadly, and I have all the confidence in the world that the Mets are going to make him something special in at least strides, if not throughout the entire course of the 162. And in the case of Max Kranek, you guys know, if you've been following the platform, I've been beating this drum longer than anyone else. The Mets acquired Max Kranek just over a year ago from the Pittsburgh Pirates when he had an injury-riddled year in his final year there because of Tommy John or so. Then is acquired by the Mets, a diehard Mets fan, a tremendous story in which he went to Shea all the time growing up as a man who actually grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and as someone who doesn't reside far from Scranton that currently lives in PA, originally from Long Island. Shout out to my friends from Green Lawn. If you know, you know. I can certainly appreciate and understand where he's coming from the fandom, especially here in Pennsylvania. Had the pleasure of meeting Max Kranek at Mets Amazing Day a couple months ago, and he was a great conversation, great guy, and we've been keeping the dialogue since then. I just DM'd him telling him how hyped up I am for Max Kranek, and good reason, because the Mets just added themselves an absolute dog to this bullpen. Not only did Kranek post, what was it, a 1.45 or 1.46 ERA this spring, but the K-to-walk ratio was 15 strikeouts to 1 walk. Yeah, that's pretty good. Then you look at the starter arsenal that he has with a 5+ pitch mix. What are you not loving in Max Kranek? The fact that we had to get to the wire and making Kranek decision official bothered me, because I really believe that the entire way, all spring long, he proved himself, but at the same time, it's a further testament to how much depth the Mets currently have in their bullpen. They have an abundance of riches right now. I mean, excluding Blackburn, with both Brosban and Kranek, two guys that have one minor league option left, so don't be surprised if one, if not both, are sent down at some point throughout the year, should they not blossom right away, and should the Mets bring up their guys, and Danilo Nunez, who will inevitably be back in this bullpen sooner rather than later, who's starting the year in AAA. Jose Urena, to a certain degree, who's a certainly the MLB caliber reliever, posted a sub-3 ERA in 64 2/3 innings as a reliever for the Rangers last year. The guy was a dog. Genesis Cabrera had almost 70 innings last year in what was a respectable campaign for the Toronto Blue Jays as a lesser leverage, I should say, lefty option, not named AJ Minter in that bullpen. They have an abundance. Rico Garcia, who I like quite a bit too. That was one of the earlier cuts. Tyler Zuber as well. I love what the Mets have right now depth-wise when we evaluate their bullpen. It's going to fluctuate tremendously throughout the course of the 162, but I have both Kranek and Brosban, in which Kranek absolutely deserves it especially. I'm just so pumped up for him and his entire family. I'm sure he's ecstatic, because it's one thing to be signing autographs with his childhood hero right next to him, and David Wright, that he told me himself was a pinch me moment at Mets Amazing Day. It's another now to officially be towing the rubber in a Mets uniform for the first time in his career. He's done it in spring training, but spring training means nothing. To see him potentially on the mound as soon as the series in Houston is electric. I simply can't wait, everybody. Let me know your initial reactions to the Max Kranek news, especially as I'm actually going to pan here real quick to see if I still have the Kranek slide, and I do, as some of you guys saw from our video that dropped a day or so ago. Max Kranek's final line this spring: 12.1 innings of 9 hit, 1 walk, 2 earned run ball, 15 strikeouts to 1 walk, and a 1.46 ERA. That's my dog. So pumped up for Max Kranek and cannot wait to see what he does. And if things don't work out, things don't work out. You know, that would just be the case with one of so many arms across Major League Baseball, especially a guy that's really trying to get his feet wet as more of a mainstay in the league. Now, initially he's coming as a starter, being stretched as a reliever the past year plus. I think that multi-inning relief opportunity is going to be great for him, but in a limited sample size, even if it's just say 1 inning and potentially high leverage, I think Kranek is going to go out and absolutely maximize that opportunity and make the most of it. So shout out once more to Max Kranek, the entire Kranek family. Same applies to Huascar Brosban. Same applies to Hayden Senger. What a story Hayden is. Let me see if I actually have the note down here, everybody. Take a look at this. Shout out to Mike Michael Mayer there, a Mets Rise, breaking down the following. Hayden Senger was drafted in the 24th round that no longer exists. Mind you, the Mets drafted him back in 2018 or so, if I'm not mistaken. He played for the Kingsport Mets, a team that no longer exists. Very true. He played for the Columbia Fireflies, another team that no longer exists in the Mets organization. He's played in games with AA Binghamton the last 4 years. It's crazy. When we talk about Hayden Senger, he is the true homegrown talent. He's been in the organization longer than anyone else that is really not named guys like Pete Alonso to a certain degree. And even then, I think he's actually been, I shouldn't say that. Alonso maybe was drafted before Senger, but regardless, around a similar timeline. Brandon Nimmo, okay, he's the longest tenure guy probably out of the group, I'd say, but Senger's right up there as well, going back to the Brodie Van Wagenen regime. And now he's finally getting an opportunity to be the Mets' backup catcher when he has been universally believed by many in the industry as one of the best defensive catchers in minor leagues per multiple reports, as well as a great story. This is a guy that is, bagging things in Whole Foods in the offseason just to make ends meet, and I can certainly respect that and then some. So Hayden Senger, congratulations. While I personally would have liked if the Mets added someone externally, especially that guys are currently being cut in the waiver wire for their respective teams that didn't crack their roster. There are some veterans out there that I think make more sense than Hayden Senger, what you're getting, but knowing that Hayden's going to get limited reps, Louis Trentz is going to command most of it, and you just want solid defense that can handle the pitching staff more than anything. I think the Mets can bite that bullet knowing how much star power they have immediately on their offense versus what the conversation would have otherwise been a couple years ago when it wasn't necessarily the case. There was certainly a lack of depth there versus what is now headlined by guys and Juan Soto. But now, guys, let's continue this conversation and let's get on to here and Hayden Senger that we just talked about, but we're actually going to hear a little bit more on the Hayden front from David Stearns.
Senger being a really good story. What is, just from your seat, the pleasure of being able to reward someone like that?
He earned it. I mean, he's worked incredibly hard his entire career, and he's earned this opportunity. So, yeah, it is a good story. He's not getting the job because it's a good story. He's getting the job because we think he can help us win games. He's an elite defensive catcher. Our pitchers love throwing to him. That really matters for us, and we're excited to have him on the team, and looking forward to watching him play.
Beautifully said, David. Now look at this. This is on the topic of Luis Acuña, everybody. Buckle up.
Wanting him to play every day, or is that not part of the equation?
I think that's always part of the equation with younger players is we want to make sure we're providing not only the best group we possibly can at the big league level, but also the right developmental opportunities. We know Acuna can help us here, and he's going to help us here, and it may very well be tomorrow afternoon. We just have to work through this and make sure that we're exploring all options before we set anything in stone.
So what does that tell us, everybody? It tells us that if the Mets can find anyone of substance that they feel fits the profile as a veteran utility option, they're likely going to pounce on that over giving Acuna the opportunity to begin the year on this opening day roster. Now, why exactly is that? Well, we've broken down in great length as to why that is here on the platform or the past week plus, but let's reiterate it once more, because the pros and cons to Acuna are as follows. You know he has tremendous speed. You know he has tremendous raw ability. We know the limited sample size last year, and he thrived for the most part. We understand that there's a lot of excitement and a lot of intrigue with Acuna, who feels like he's already everyday MLB caliber player close to. Let's get into the cons and reasons as to why he may very well not be on this opening day roster. And it starts with a little bit on the mentality. You know, we saw reports going back over the past couple of days on how Francisco Lindor reiterated how bored Acuna has been and how bored mentality is going hand with, maybe lackadaisical production and not having the full commitment in. And Acuna tested through an interpreter by saying how it's really hard to find that same high at the major leagues, from the major leagues than what you get in the minor leagues. It just isn't the same. And that's 1,000% true, and everyone handles these things differently. But I think in the case of Acuna, not that I think he has too big of a head on his shoulders or anything like that, but you do just have to wonder ever so slightly at minimum, what is the mental game going on there with Acuna? Has that factored at all? If so, how much has that factored at all behind the Mets' potential decision making here, along with just his raw abilities, right? The Mets want to make sure Acuna properly develops, and they don't want to rush anything with him. If you have him on the open ADA roster, but he is not getting consistent reps, but is more so of that backup option off the bench as a true utility fit while giving the keys to Baty, understandably so, as Baty 100% deserves to be here, and he has officially cracked the Mets roster too. That goes without saying. That was the most obvious one of the group when we look at position players after the injuries and after Brett the Met just said, I am not starting the year in AAA. I'm going to be the starting second baseman. That's exactly what he's going to be for this Mets team. Now, in the case of Acuna, the Mets appear in two directions. One, they want to give Baty significant reps at second base, which I'm sure goes in hand, but maybe not even wanting Acuna on the roster because that's going to incline them to want to platoon things more at that position, even though I think that makes a lot of sense to see who can run away with it over the next couple weeks until McNeil comes back, if anyone runs away with it, or if Jeff just goes back to being the normal second baseman for the Mets for the foreseeable future throughout the season. So there are a lot of pros and cons that come in hand with Acuna, and I understand both of them thoroughly. I'm not going to be overly upset if he starts the year in Syracuse, especially if he's playing every single day, getting consistent reps in the infield, but at the same time, I'll also be a little bothered if the Mets settle what's, Joe Schmo that they're picking up off the waiver wire, and then Buddy gets no playing time whatsoever, and then we just cut him in a week or two when it's Zach Short, Joey Wendell 2.0. Like, what are we doing here? I want everyone on this Mets roster that's actually on the roster, no matter if you're starting or on the bench, to actually be of upside for this team. Acuna certainly has that, so I understand the pro and wanting him while understanding the con and not wanting to hurt his development if he's going to be given limited opportunities. And right now, from what we're seeing from David Stearns, it's another prime example of what prospects were drafted or acquired through Billy Epler do not necessarily mean that a guy in Stearns is going to have that same commitment and same attachment, which is why you shouldn't be shocked if the Mets do trade away one of their top prospects in Jet Williams, Drew Gilbert, among others this year. Not that they dislike them, but rather they don't have the same personal attachment that previous regime and Billy Epler certainly did for this Mets team. So it's going to be a fascinating one to follow. We will find out for certain by latest 12 or 1 p.m. Eastern, a couple hours before their first game there in Houston tomorrow at the time of recording this one, and what is happening with Luisangel Acuña. But someone who brought up note that I thought was important, shout out to Jack Ramsey on X. Jack, of course, another Mets talking head here. I appreciate his takes sometimes, and he had this to say, which is the following. Jack said, briefing on Stearns, which we saw, but then said, of note, David Baty posted an OPS over 1,000 this spring, as able to field MLB offers through the upward mobility clause in his Dodger NRI deal. That's true. He just exercised that clause with the Dodgers and David Baty, the former infielder that we know from the Chicago Cubs, can play all over the place. Not necessarily going to play them overly proficient, but he had a tremendous spring training, a hot bat there. And if the Mets are going to lose Alexander Canario, which crushes me to say, but everything is looking in that direction right now because there's no roster room for him. They're not going to make roster room for him unless could the Mets actually be debating having Canario on this roster over Luisangel Acuña? Is it possible that the Mets are actually going to go down that route? I don't really see how, considering they have such limited infield options then and more than enough offensive options. But pardon me, when I say offense, I mean on the outfield front. So it's hard to envision that. It really makes little to no sense because if Baty doesn't play well or one guy goes down with injury, they have no one to essentially choose from there on the bench because McNeil's down with injury currently, as we know too. Right now, your bench consists of not only your backup catcher and Hayden Senger, but also and Jesse Winker, Sterling Marte, whoever's not starting there, and one of Tyrone Taylor or Jose Siri. So they need at least one utility guy on that bench, and that's why Canario is boxed out right now. And I'm hoping and praying that a guy in Alexander Canario can get through the waiver wire cleared without a problem. But a 24-year-old bat who looked tremendous this spring for the Mets, gave it his absolute all. It's hard to envision that he won't be picked up and be given a greater opportunity elsewhere. But again, we'll see it to believe it, hoping for the best that he somehow, some way stays in the organization because too many teams are focused on just making their own roster cuts because they have an abundance of players that they're currently dealing with. But on the Acuna and Baty front, everybody, I would love to know all your key takeaways in the comments down below. Thank you so much for exactly that. And now let's hear what Carlos Mendoza has to say on Francisco Alvarez and his health status.
Alvarez healing.
Fine. Stitches out on Monday, I think it was. So now he's going to start, the strengthening part and hopefully ramping up baseball activities, shortly after. But, stitches are out and now, like I said, it's strength-wise.
I also would like to make a note that Carlos Mendoza did also say that Brett Baty is going to be getting the bulk of time at second base, as we can obviously expect, but that's been reaffirmed by he himself there. There's AJ Minter, as it was officially confirmed, even though it's cut off, but you guys can see that's AJ's chin. He officially made the Mets bullpen as well, as we talked about, which I'm very excited by. A longtime foe, now a friend here. We'll see how AJ does. I did also just want to reiterate briefly some pieces that came out over the past day or so, especially where the Mets didn't have a game yesterday, so I didn't didn't get a video out because I was doing content for everyone else in the BR app, as well as Evan Roberts for WFAN and Mets Life. Check out their platform as well, as they're dropping their our interview at 7 p.m. today, I believe, on X, on YouTube, and in their respective socials. But we saw Tim Healy came out with a key article with Juan Soto, having the discussion about his conversations they had as it was leaked through the official Sports Illustrated piece, which I cannot wait to see. I've already ordered it. I can't wait to have that bad boy on the wall behind me. Great piece from Tom Verducci getting into the key recordings from the Steve Cohen and Juan Soto interview. And the most notable thing in that interview process is that Cohen firmly believed that he had no shot at landing Soto, so much so that he actually snapped at Juan and said, okay, you're giving us a lot of reasons as to why you don't want to come here. So basically, what are we doing here? And hilariously enough, the next day, Cohen comes to find out that it was a very good meeting. It went great. And Steve's like, all right. And then not long after that, Soto says to Scott Boras over message or over the phone, let's try to get it done with the Mets. Let's make it happen. This comes, mind you, after Juan Soto, in meeting initially with Steve Cohen, stated how, you don't have protection for me. Speaking at the time of not bringing back Alonso currently, as well as other key pieces of the lineup. And we know that in case of Soto, he's had many years where he really hasn't had true protection, which is why last year was great for him, obviously working with a guy like Aaron Judge every single day. And as I broke down in that latest piece of the Rico Bronia podcast, so you guys can check out with Evan Roberts, he asked me, do I think that Juan Soto could get a career high this year in walks at like 145 or higher, something that he hasn't done since 2021 with the Nationals, with guys in both Ryan Zimmerman and then majority Josh Bell banging behind him. And I said, yes, I can see that being a reality, because why isn't Juan Soto going to get Barry Bonds treatment left, right, and center this year, especially with a Pete Alonso that they know that they can go out and attack and see how Pete is going to respond. That's why this is all the makings to be a great year offensively for this Mets team. A lot of key batters are going to be facing more pitches than maybe what they otherwise are in recent years. In the case of Soto, he may get greater Bonds treatment than ever before, not just because of the monstrous contract, but the reality that he's a generational hitter. And there's only like 2 other guys in the game since he's arrived as a 19-year-old who are doing what he's doing at the pace that he's doing it. So for all those reasons, it's a great breakdown. Check it out on the Newsday piece there, as well as what Anthony DeComo first broke down. And the Mets themselves, they are going to be rocking the official number 7 patch for the late and great Ed Kranepool, which is tremendous for him and his entire family. I'd assume that they're going to be repping this throughout the entire course of the year, but at minimum, they're going to be repping this here for the start of the season. Should be all year, though, so that's what I'm expecting it to be. But great news there on the front of Ed Kranepool. Again, Mr. Met in a lot of ways, a very long-tenured Met who gave so much to the organization from the absolute start. And you can't think of the Mets without mentioning Ed Kranepool, because while he wasn't the sexiest player by any stretch, he wasn't the best player, is what I mean by sexy in that sense. I don't see how you can't commend the man for being what it means to be the true epitome of a New York Met from start to finish, up until he was there with his very last breath. So to the entire Ed Kranepool family, my condolences once more, but congratulations at the same time, as rightfully so, Ed's going to be honored properly by this team. And the only thing final I have to say is I wouldn't hate the idea of the Mets obviously retiring the number. And I understand there might be some controversy that comes with that for the Jose Reyes fans out there, but the quick counter is he himself has enough controversy to say, hey, does it really matter? And then we look at Brett the Met Baty, unless he goes out to be Barry Bonds this year for this team. I think 7 is more than fine to be hanging up there in Citi Field for the foreseeable future to do right by the Kranepool family. If it doesn't happen, that's fine, but it's just something that I personally wanted to throw out there to each and every one of you. But guys, that's going to do it for our video. Thank you so much for watching. Be on the lookout again. BR app live 5 p.m. Eastern, so might already have started by the time you see this video. Check out our content that officially drops 6 p.m. Eastern at the WardyMLB YouTube channel. That'll be linked down below in the description of this video for you guys to go subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff right away, interact over there. It really does mean a lot, as well as checking out all of our respective content that we've had here on the platform, including our live show to members only at 7:30 p.m. later this evening. Thank you guys again. As always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.